Families are struggling to survive.
CNN Election Special. CNN Saturday and Sunday night, 8 Eastern.
Well, joining me now, three of the country's preeminent financial experts. Bill Gross is the founder of PIMCO. It is the world's largest bond fund. Bill, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Lou.
David K. Johnson, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, author of Free Lunch, How the Wealthiest Americans Enrich Themselves at Government Expense. What a timely subtitle. David, good to have you with us. And Robert Kuttner, co-editor of The American Prospect, author of the very timely book, The Squandering of America, How the Failure of Our Politics Undermines Our Prosperity. Great to have you all here. Let me begin, Bill, with you. Bill Gross, we are watching T-bills. If you buy a T-bill, you're paying for the privilege after the commission. I mean, we've got 700. A man who didn't even recognize we had a financial crisis a week ago is walking around saying we got to have $700 billion tonight. Now, between you and me, just you and me, Bill, I don't believe this man knows what he's talking about. What do you think?
Well, let me take the other side of that, Lou. I know you're not going to like this, but what's important, I think, is that the Treasury makes a profit or participates in the equity of these companies that they're rescuing. For instance, AIG last week, they've charged in terms of their lending facility at least a 10 or 11% interest rate, which is high compensation indeed. Secondly, in terms of this bailout program, $700 billion, it's really, in my opinion, an investment program because they'll be buying basically subprime mortgages at 65 cents on the dollar, yielding 10, 11, and 12%.
Wait a minute. What happened? Wait a minute. You're a free market guy. You're a market guy. What happened to letting the markets work? Suddenly the government is involved in determining price mechanisms? What happened here?
The markets aren't working. I mean, we're in the midst of a...
So how can we make it? Then how can we assume that anything else is working, including price mechanisms, valuations? What in the world are we making? Why are we making these crazy assumptions here?
Lou, we've had too much leverage. We have asset deflation of significant proportions, and it basically
Bill, we know how we got
stopped.
here. We got here because some people went nuts, and were permitted to go nuts. But I mean, how can we make these assumptions that any of these valuations approximate anything near reality when the mechanism itself is failing and there is no impulse whatsoever in what is a moribund economy or markets or among investors to buy these things?
Well, just hold on one second and then I'll finish my plea. In terms of markets, the auction process, the free market process will be utilized here in terms of this $7 billion. It's a reverse auction. It will be allowed to find its market price. The Treasury will buy it, will assume a return of 10, 11, and 12%, and then hopefully sell it later on in the marketplace as markets stable down.
Well, but how can you assume a return of 11 and 12% when these loans were made to people with the full knowledge that they couldn't afford to pay them off? The problem is this whole crisis was created by crazy assumptions. So this is no time for assumptions based on wild guesses. And I think if we're going to have this kind of a bailout, there's a whole bunch of things that have to go with it. There has to be an equity stake in these companies like we had in the Reconstruction Finance Corporation in the 1930s. There have to be limits on executive compensation. There have to, during World War II, there was something called the renegotiation board. Right. If you were a war profiteer, the government could go back and audit the contract, get some of the taxpayer money back. We need a renegotiation provision for this.
You better set a time period because I think you can go back. A lot of folks are going to owe a lot of money over a 10-year period. David, your thoughts?
Well, we're seeing the government here doing just what it did before the Iraq War. We have to have this action right now. You have to do it just the way we say, and you have to trust us. They've panicked the markets, that's without question. But I've been calling business people I know all across America today and asking, well, has your bank tightened up or said they won't renew your 90-day loan? No. Citibank today offered to loan me tens of thousands of dollars at 2.99% interest on my signature. There are ads on the internet, including on AOL, which is the same company that's presenting this show, offering toxic mortgages at 1.9%.
We love AOL.
Okay, well, there are ads offering 1.9% mortgages, the very thing that got us into this. And the cost of this is the equivalent of a one-time 55% increase in your income tax bill.
All right.
That's how much money we're talking about.
Bill Gross, okay, here's where we are. we're looking at a situation where we've got somebody trying to push this down. That person is, you like Henry Paulson, I get the idea. But this is a guy who hasn't been right on trade. He hasn't been right on the markets. He hasn't been right on regulation. And suddenly we're supposed to turn over the keys to this economy without anyone either being able to look through his windshield, check his map at all. I mean, what in the world, besides pure desperation, would give anyone the leave of mind to give him that kind of power?
Lou, let me give you the alternative. Last week there was a run on this country's money market funds, $3 trillion of money market funds, tantamount to a run on the bank. To the extent that we allow that to happen, then basically we allow the dollar to sink, we allow the economy to sink, right. We allow the housing market to sink. Those are your alternatives.
My question is this then, though, and Bill, it's just so everybody knows, there are very few people in the markets I respect more than Bill Gross. A very smart fellow. But I got to say, what makes anybody think $700 billion thrown against this problem? I mean, we had a $150 billion run on money market funds last week. Now suddenly the United States government is guaranteeing money market funds across this country. We call it $3.5 to $4 trillion. We have got to find some leadership. When we get through this, we're going to still have no leadership. We don't have the political leadership. We don't have the economic leadership. We don't have business leadership or market leadership. What in the world is the result here, Bill?
Lou, you're not looking at this $700 billion in the right way. It's an investment. It's not an expenditure.
I'm just saying to you, Bill, I'm going to accept your idea that it's an investment, all right? I accept that. What in the world has changed in terms of the leadership and the direction of these markets, the industry, and this economy in this country?
Lou, the markets have frozen up. The credit markets, which are basically the foundation of equity markets and the foundation of wealth creation in this country and globally, you basically have frozen up. That was typified by the run on the money market funds. Something had to be done.
Yeah, but not this something. I mean, what Bill Gross is saying and what Hank Paulson is saying is my way or the highway, and there's a lot of other ways of doing this. You can cap executive compensation. You can have a control board, not just auditing what Paulson does after the fact, but reviewing what he proposes to do before they grant him the authority to do it. The last thing in the world we need is a financial czar who comes out of this culture that gave us this
We
mess.
don't need a financial czar at all, in my opinion, from this culture or any other.
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry, David.
Lou, can we have some transparency in this thing? This is unreviewable decisions, or the Democrats are talking about arbitrary and capricious would be reviewable. We ought to have complete disclosure here, and let's keep in mind, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley want in on this deal. That ought to tell you something about the pricing and the arrangement of this deal, because they're experts at pricing. They want in on it. It can't be that bad a deal for them. It must be pretty good.
Well, you know, I think that's absolutely right. And with a few folks I've talked to on Wall Street here in the last day or so, they think there's a lot of money to be made here. I don't like the sound of that right now under these circumstances. Bill, how about capping executive compensation for firms receiving federal guarantees or bailouts? What do you think?
Oh, I think the way to go is really equitization in terms of the government stake. You want the government to be able to participate in these deals. They've done that with AIG. I think they're going in the right direction.
All right. And just to be clear, go ahead quickly, David, then we've got to wrap.
AIG's got about $20 billion in offshore profits. Why, as a condition of our bailing them out, aren't they required to bring that money home and pay taxes on it?
Anybody want to answer that one?
Well, the deal is unraveling. I mean, the point is the people are rising up against this deal, and Congress is getting the message, and Paulson's not going to get his way.
Look, it's time to cut through the nonsense. The same savants and masters of the universe who created this mess are now saying how it should be resolved. That's upside down, and it's not the way it should be done. Let's see what happens. That's just one fellow's opinion. Bill Gross, hate to argue with you so much. David?
That's okay. Thank you, Lou.
Keeps America strong. Freedom of expression. David K. Johnson, thanks as always. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And Bob, thank you very much.